Uh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Uh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Uh-uh.
Yes, Leia, yes.
No, Lamont. You're not, no, you're incorrect. No.
Well, maybe then I'll just learn from my mistakes. I'm Lamont, and Happy New Year, Leia.
And I'm Leah. Happy New Year, Lamont. And
And
you're
you're tuning
into
into the
the
Lamont
Lamont
N
and
Leah
Leah podcast.
podcast. Oh my goodness. So we're back in the new year, second week, I think, of the new year.
I
I
don't
hope
know.
everyone has enjoyed their holidays. I just got back from Kansas. I got to see Kayla and the kids, and it was just really, really nice. So, what did you do for New Year's, Leia?
I don't know. Just, I mean, we can't really go out anywhere. So, like over here it's still kind of like strict COVID stuff, so we're still not going anywhere. So, I just watched some fireworks and that was about it.
So today, Leia, I got as a special guest, business owner Brian Nogaro. And he's gonna come on today to talk to us about mistakes and like how to like learn to accept our mistakes. I feel like so many people, so many struggle with just even making a mistake. And I kind of want to just talk about that and unpack that today and like ways we can be better about accepting our mistakes. So that's what we're gonna do today.
Awesome. I'll need to tune into this episode and learn how to accept my mistakes. All right, let's go get him.
All right, let's go get them. Welcome, Brian, to the Lamont and Leah podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem at all. Would you please take a minute to just share with our listeners and our viewers about who you are and what you do and what you're passionate about?
Amazing. Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So my name's Brian Nogaro. I'm from Canada, Toronto, Canada. And what do I do? I've been doing sales for the last 7 years. It started door to door and just started training people and managing them and building up sales teams. And today I have a small agency where I help small businesses that are kind of one-man shops scale their business by outsourcing their sales departments, where we help train and recruit sales reps for them so that they can grow their business. Sorry, what was the third question? It's who I am, what I do,
And what you're passionate about, yeah.
what I'm passionate about. Honestly, I'm very passionate about sales. I think that the way people communicate makes all the difference in relationships and in business and in so many different areas. And yeah, if I can help people communicate 10% better, I just know the quality of their life will increase by whatever measure. And yeah, that's what I'm passionate about.
That's great. That's great. It
Awesome.
sounds like you're in the business of really helping people.
Yeah, the more connected someone is to that reason of how and why they help people, the more of an impact they make, and probably the better they do at hitting whatever goals or mission that they're setting out to accomplish.
All right. So, growing up, I used to watch The Magic School Bus. And the greatest teacher in the world, Miss Frizzle, she had the best saying: take chances, make mistakes, get messy. And that to me was always so powerful and encouraging. However, over time, I feel like a common human experience is trying to avoid making mistakes at whatever the cost. So today, let's define mistakes. And am I crazy? Or is this your guys' experience too?
For sure. I hate mistakes and I will not make them.
Um, that, yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a lot of people that just don't like, especially like social media now and whatnot. We only put the highlights, the triumphs, the that kind of stuff, and so no one wants, everyone wants more of that stuff and less of the stuff we don't put on social media. But hey, I think it actually goes like deeper as well, like mistakes. Um, like like making, or the fear rather of making mistakes, it probably leads to a lot of like procrastination, like putting off decision making, like just paralyzation in
Yeah,
one form or
yeah.
another. And honestly, I think in one form or another it might even relate back to like traumatic experiences when you were a kid and like you made a mistake with whatever, and the whole I'm not worthy or whatever. I think a lot of it probably comes from that with the general public. Just a thought. What do you guys
Yeah.
think?
For
So
sure.
how do we even define mistakes? Like, what is a mistake? Like, what does it even mean to make a mistake?
I think, let's see. Let's see if I can come up with a definition today.
Great
Usually I
question.
let you define everything, Lamont. But I would say a mistake is when you have, so I think usually it's an action, right? You're trying to achieve a goal, but something happens and you don't achieve it at all or not the right way, something like that. Is that deep? Is that too?
No, that
I
sounds good to
don't
me.
It's a great definition. I think what's really unique about mistakes is that it's subjective, you know, like what seems like a mistake to one person, looking at it from a different perspective, like, hey, I made this mistake in this project, but it led me to meet my future wife that we had kids with. Like, was that a mistake? Like, really? I guess as you zoom out, um, like, I don't know, the concept of a mistake is subjective, which is why it's so interesting. It's why I'm glad we're talking about it. Do you guys think there could be one definition of a mistake?
I
Probably.
mean, I looked it up online, and there's definitely a definition, but I think
know.
you're totally right in your sense that it is subjective.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as a kid, I used to hear from like adults around me, like, oh, mistakes are just opportunities or some BS like that. And as a kid, I was like, yeah, right. No, I just made a mistake. It sucks. But now as an adult, I'm like, ah, yeah, I guess they were right.
Yeah, and I guess it really depends on like what it is, right? Because like some mistakes might weigh heavier than others. Where like, oh, I made a mistake and I spilled the milk. Well, that's easy. I can clean that up, right? But like if I really hurt someone's feelings and like it kind of destroys them and that wasn't even my intention, like that could be devastating for all parties involved.
For sure. And as well, the way you handle it, I think like what happens right after the mistake is probably indicative of if it's a positive or negative. You know, how many of us have learned from our mistakes? Like everyone does. You know, make a mistake, hurt someone's feelings, admit to it, take responsibility for it. It brings you closer to that person. Was the mistake negative? Like again, so subjective. Like it's you can go back and forth so many ways with mistakes. It's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm thinking so Brian, you don't know this. I run groups for a living. I work in mental health and I run groups and I get to work with like K through 12. And sometimes I'm working with I work with all ages and I ask all of them to define things because defining things for yourself is so important because you start realizing and start like making it work into your life. And that's why we do it on this podcast as well. So I'll ask them to define things. And a lot of times, like when they first start and they don't know me or they're getting to know me, they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to make a mistake, right? And so, like, the people that do share, I think that experience is so important because I never try to tell any kid that they're wrong. Even though like they might be like they may not be in the ballpark, but even when they share something, I try to see how it relates and I'm like, hey, like you're kind of on the right track. I can see how that relates. I can see where your thinking is going, which encourages others to like maybe share their thoughts and stuff. And then after like weeks of me doing this, like they're more willing to like pop out stuff and share because it's a safe space. But I think a lot of times what happens is, like you were saying, in our childhood, we made some kind of mistake and we don't feel safe to continue really making mistakes because of the whatever experience happened afterwards.
Absolutely. It sucks too, because like honestly, I think we learn more in our mistakes than in our successes as well. And so like if your goal is to, continue to learn and improve as a human being, as the listeners to this podcast, probably their goal is to do that. Mistakes are crucial. And that's ultimately like our job as leaders. Like, Lamont, I've no doubt you're really good at your job and creating that safe space for whoever it is. Obviously, I do sales, and when there's certainty for the other party, like when there's trust, certainty, those things are synonymous in sales. They feel safe making this decision, they'll make the decision. If not, it's the response you're going to get every time is I got to think about it, or I got to ask my accountant, wife, whatever, because they just don't feel safe making that decision. And so yeah, I think it's really important, what you just touched on, to the like if someone doesn't feel safe, they're not going to put themselves out there enough to make a mistake.
So, Leah, what are some other like ideas of where like some of these behaviors come from? Why people are avoiding or choosing not to engage in these mistakes?
You want to know personally?
Sure.
um, me, I just feel like there was a lot of pressure put on me as a kid to like do things a certain way and do things correctly. Not saying that I had like an abusive upbringing or anything. It was not like that. It was just like, I guess how my mom would put it, she saw so much potential in me. And yeah, I get it. You want the best for your kids. You want them to succeed in life. But there's a lot of pressure on me to make sure that everything I was doing was the way it was supposed to be. I got straight A's. I was a good kid. I was nice to people. I helped people. And so I feel like for me personally, I am now scared to make mistakes because that means I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So I
So,
constantly have to like remind myself like, no, that's okay. It's just
yes.
how you react and how you fix the problem if you've made a mistake that has yielded a problem, which honestly half the time it probably doesn't.
Yeah, no, so that expectation, right? So I think it goes back to what Brian was saying about that fear. And so it's that fear of making a mistake, falling short of the expectations, and then those insecurities coming up, or maybe that embarrassing moment, or maybe the negative judgments from our parents and their friends or our friends. And so these are like really painful experiences. And so I can see why people would want to avoid or hide because they're not being supported in making these mistakes and learning and being like having a positive experience with making a mistake.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally agree. Well said. Um, do you guys want to know something fun fact? I looked up the name for fear of making mistakes. It's actually a
Oh,
phobia, and it's
oh,
called telephobia.
you said
Wow.
a telephobia?
And it's basically the fear of making mistakes. Um, and do you know how much percentage of people identify with it?
Oh
How
yeah.
much?
It was over 60%.
Over 60%. All right. That's a big number. That's a D.
Add me
So
to that
that's
list.
still significant.
Add me to that list.
So, in fact, why don't we actually share some mistake or a mistake from our past where we actually learn from that experience? And maybe we can also share, if we have enough time, a mistake where we wasn't well received.
I gotta think.
Yeah, me too.
Should have prepped us for this question, Lamont.
Hey, you're supposed to read the outline before you jump on to the.
I guess, yeah, that's true. That was my mistake.
But I wrote it. I'm not even like prepared. I was like, it'll come to me when it comes.
um. Okay, let's see. Ooh. I mean, I don't know how many times I've made a mistake dyeing my hair and it turned out really cool.
Nice.
That's cool.
So what do you think you learned from it?
Um, Trust the process.
Yeah, trust your intuition.
That's a good
I,
lesson.
yeah, I think that goes with most artwork. I'm very hard on myself when it comes to art, but just trust the process. It'll get there and it'll look good.
I think like I have a good relationship with mistakes. Like I don't like to make them, but if I do, I don't panic anymore. And I think because I make so many like in a day that I'm just like it's gonna work out. I'm gonna find a way to around it or problem solve it or fix it because it's not the end all be all. And I think I've learned that like initially from making so many freaking mistakes.
Yeah, I love that. I'll answer the question with an example. I'm trying not to go too far back with this and think of like what mistakes I've made today because um yeah, just definitely make mistakes every day. Um and I had a meeting with a nonprofit that I'm part of, and there was just a point in which the communication between myself and another person, it was like we were just kind of trampling on top of each other as we were talking or whatever. Um, and honestly, one thing I mentioned this before, like what happens after the mistake is what's most important. And I know for sure after making a mistake, after I realize that I've made a mistake, 100% of the time, what I should do is take responsibility for it. And that's probably the first thing. Next thing is probably tell someone that I realized that I made this mistake. And then the conversation that ensues, I think maybe just kind of go with your gut as well, go with your intuition as to like what you need to say to this person to move on from it. Um, but yeah, I think what I learned from that is that like I maybe wouldn't say this for every mistake, but most of you take responsibility and you communicate to the other person, an apology. Most of the mistakes you'll like not erased, but like you'll be all right, you know. Um, and so yeah,
Yeah.
big or small. I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
agree with that,
no.
but
Very much I've experienced that.
which is really empowering. We were talking about like the fear of making mistakes too, is like you always know that you can fall back on that. Is that
Hmm.
like if you do make a mistake, then you just got to take responsibility for it. And that's what maybe put ego aside a little bit. Sometimes it that gets in the way from apologies and things. Um, but yeah, if you know that you have that with you, as you can make a mistake and you can get through it. Yeah, it can empower a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Most of the time it goes good. Sometimes it doesn't. I've
Right.
had a few experiences where it does not go good. No matter how much you
Fair,
apologize, no matter how much you own up to it, they're pissed.
very true.
Care
And
to
they
share
never
one of
forget
those
it.
experiences?
Yeah, so a few years ago I was working retail, and it was for I worked at a holiday shop where we did like personalized ornaments. And I guess one of the ornaments that this lady came to pick up was misspelled. And I mean, it's not anything I did. It was the person who was customizing. I'm just selling the ornaments. But of course, the lady had gone on break. And so when the customer came to pick it up, and she's like, well, this is misspelled, and I've been waiting for blah, blah, blah. And, I was fairly new at that point, so I hadn't really like learned how to speak to customers about custom orders before.
Okay.
And so I was trying to figure out what to do because my manager just went on break, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I could call her, but she just left, and yada yada yada. So I said to the lady, um, I'm not really sure. And then I had meant to say, I'm not sure what I should do. Let me call a manager. But what came out was, I don't know what to tell you. And she's like, excuse me? I was like, I mean, let me call a manager. And she goes, yeah, you better.
Oh my god.
So, I mean, I called the manager. She came back. She was only like over in the food court area. So, a minute later, she was there. She fixed the problem. The lady, of course, complained about my attitude or whatnot. But my manager was just like, I get it. It's fine. I'm not going to report you or anything to anyone. But she goes, just like, kind of like, watch how you talk. And I'm like, and then I explained to her, like, this is what I meant to say. This is what came out. And she goes, oh, yeah, I know. That happens. But yeah, that lady was pissed.
So did you, Leah, do you mind if I ask, did you like, were you more aware of the way you spoke after that? Or did you, like, what were the, like, kind of results after that
uh,
happened?
yeah. So I was a lot more careful with how I spoke to customers. I mean, this wasn't my first retail job, so as soon as I said it, I knew that that was like, no, like I shouldn't have said that, but it was a complete accident. Like, multiple responses going on in my head, and like all of them combined into, I don't know what to tell you.
Like a fresh out of luck lady. Get out my
Right?
store.
Like, too bad. Move on. But no. But yeah, she was not happy, no matter how many times I apologized. But that's okay. I guess we learn.
But yeah, so and you never repeated that mistake again, so
Hell no. I got out of retail. No, I'm just kidding.
the lesson there was I don't belong in retail.
Yes, that was the lesson. Don't do retail. It's not for me.
Oh my. Oh my.
I went on to do years more of retail.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of a time where it didn't really work out. And I'm pretty sure like it's the person, right? So it would probably been something with my grandma and she was angry and didn't want to hear my side, even though it was not intentional. And so, what can you do? And so, I think kind of last week, Leia, we talked about communication and psychological barriers and anger being one
It
of
was a
those
few weeks ago already, actually.
psychological barriers. Oh yeah, it was a few weeks ago. Sorry. And yeah, so like people can't really or people have a hard time when they're angry or
Mm-hmm.
stressed or whatever like wading through or working through, especially if they don't have the tools. So my grandma, as smart as she is, doesn't have the tools when she's emotionally upset to like have a conversation and make me feel empowered when she's upset. So yeah,
Can I ask you a question about that?
absolutely.
So after this whole interaction happened, um, um, so was this one interaction or was it kind of like a theme throughout?
A
Uh,
theme throughout. A theme throughout, depending on like her mood, right? Like when she's in a good mood, like she can be empowering, but if she's in a bad mood, it's not at all. It's probably the opposite.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, that is a tough one because obviously if it's something that happens over and over again, fixing it is not that easy because it's like it's a habit now. It's a thought pattern. But what do you think? Wait, well, yeah, what do you think for anyone listening to this right now, if they have a similar relationship in their life to whomever, where whether it's anger or maybe even alcohol or something happens and it um, usually triggers like this.
Mhm.
How do you guys think that like we can help repair that going forward?
Um, I would have to say, like, learn to accept, like, you can't control people, you can only control yourself. One. Two, how good are you at being assertive and putting in boundaries and being able to, like, walk away from things that aren't serving you? I can do that now. Like, I'm really good at doing that now. But then I did not have the tool set to be able, like, hey, like, this is not a good conversation for me, grandma, or grandma, I feel disrespected. And like, Grandma, I'm not sassing you. I'm not talking back, but I am feeling disrespected. You may not be willing to hear this, so I'm gonna go ahead and like take a break or breathe or walk away. If we can continue this conversation later, great. If we can't, that's okay too. You know. But it's just, but so those were just interactions, like I guess negative interactions that I've learned how to like navigate and deal with and be firm in my boundaries and be okay with me setting those boundaries and not feel guilty or upset or ashamed of setting those boundaries to have a healthier sense of self.
Yeah, well said, man. I think this is something that someone in their life where, I don't know, something triggers them. And yeah, well said. That was a really good answer, man.
Yeah. And I think if you're on the other side of that, like if you're not the person receiving that, if you're the person giving that, I think like I would hope that people would do a lot more self-reflection than they actually do and realize, okay, like why do I get so upset at this stuff? Like why what is it that makes me unable to, you know, have a conversation like this and not just get mad and like blind to everything else. Um, I mean that seems like I'm being really like high maka maka about it. I mean like
No.
high nosed about it, but like I have to do that myself, like because there are certain things that I guess like trigger me or whatever, and I like act out. I'm like, okay, so like why are you doing this? I thought we were woke. um, but yeah, so
No, taking that moment to self-reflect in times that are hard or even after, um, is a really great tool to have and a way to fix like potential mistakes, right? Like, hey, like I did not handle this the best way. I do want to do better. What are things that are triggering me? What things can I be aware of so I can like deal with it better in the future, you know, if it comes up again.
yeah.
Yeah, Leah, I think that's huge. All the conflicts that we have in our lives, like probably 50% of it is us, is us that get triggered by something that like
Hmm.
this other person never intended. And maybe it's 50%, maybe it's less, maybe it's more, whatever. But the point is like when you do that, like you take back your power as well. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's we can get really good at setting boundaries and whatnot, but if we're if this is happening over and over and over again, where we constantly have to be getting into these interactions with people, it's probably us. And yeah, I think it's so few percentage of people that actually will take any time at all to self-reflect. So yeah, just hearing you say that, like really, um, thank you. That was awesome.
All right. So last story, then we'll take a break, and come back and answer like ways we can start implementing or cultivating accepting mistakes in our life. But Leia, this is a story kind of personal to you. I'm working with your younger brother, right?
Oh, yes.
And this week he came over, and I didn't eat before, and I was kind of tired. And like usually I have a lot of patience for the kid because I love your little brother. He's so awesome, so smart, so talented. But he was telling me a lot of nonsense, or like I felt like he was lying to me. Like, and I got like a little angry with him. And I shut him down kind of a little bit, and then like he got really upset because I don't think I've ever shut him down before. Or like again, like not like, and then I was like, whoa, like, and I saw that he was getting upset, so I had to draw myself, and I was like, oh, like I made him upset. I didn't mean to. And I was like, okay, you need to eat and you're tired and we need to wrap up this session soon. So I didn't apologize, but I did like give him some choices so he could calm down. And then And then I made sure like I was listening and validating his feelings so he could have a better experience, and he got over it and we finished the work and then I ate. But like take like I was able to like in that moment I saw that he got upset, and I like again like I don't want to upset him. I want him to enjoy learning so he can like feel more confident
Yeah.
at school. So yeah. So I did make a mistake in how I was handling it earlier by shutting him down, because that's never okay. No one ever wants to be shut down and not listening to his feelings. But one of the things he's like, you never listen. I was like, well, that's not true, Adam. I listen to you all the time except for today, the one day.
Silly kid.
Hey, Lamont, what do you what do you find was the difference between like that kind of light bulb moment when you realize like, oh shoot, I shut him down, like I should what do you think you did differently kind of in the second half of that interaction that you didn't do in the first half?
I was listening to him, and then I realized like even though I felt like he was lying to me, and so like again that like kind of sparked my anger. I was like, this is his perspective. Maybe he's not lying. It's just how he sees it, or at least how he wants to see it. So, and like again, like that's not necessarily a lie, right? It's what he's told himself, or how he's rationalized it, or how it's coming up for him. Even though like I'm kind of suspicious that he might know that may not be the 100% truth the way he was trying to tell it to me, but maybe like really he wasn't trying to do like any like so taking that in strive, like okay, like this is his the way he's seeing it, and instead of trying to shut it down, I should be more curious about it and give it back to him, and maybe even back him into a corner, like Adam, like this is the dialogue, my inner dialogue. I know that you know that that's not correct, but if you want to go down this road or maybe play this game, here's a question. Can you get yourself out of this question, because it's gonna go right into your face. versus like, no, Adam, you're
Right on.
wrong. Yeah, versus like, no, Adam, you're wrong. Stop talking. I don't want to hear it. That's not cool.
Yeah. Nice. Hearing all these stories about my brother is so funny. All right, let's take a quick break. Like you said, when we get back, we'll talk about the benefits of learning to accept your mistakes and some other ways we can work on that. Alrighty. Happy New Year's, Lamont.
Happy New Year, Leah.
Since it's the new year, I figured we should probably have some goals for the year.
True. I feel like I always have goals, so. But yeah, let's talk about some of our goals.
All right. So, first of all, I need you to pick a random number between 1 and 36.
7.
Okay. So, Lamont, tell me, in the year 2022, what is one thing you are going to create?
Season 2 of the Lamont N Leah podcast.
Coming out in a few weeks. I feel like that's a cheat, but okay, I'll allow it. Okay, so let me see. For me, I'm trying to think of a random number. 12. Okay, let me go back to my list. By the way, I will leave a link to this list that I found. It is up called Prompts for the New Year from a website called daringtolivefully.com. So, number 12 says one book I'm going to read. Oh, okay. There was this book I read in high school called Eon, E-O-N, and I loved it. If you guys have never heard of it, please look it up. I don't have enough time to like explain what it's about, but in high school, the author had not written the second book yet, even though she had planned, like it ends on a cliffhanger, and she'd even said in the book somewhere that she was going to write a second one. But in high school, she hadn't finished it yet. So the other day I randomly was just like, I'm going to look up this book and see if she ever did. And she did a few years ago. So I bought the book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited for I'm excited to read it.
It's not like Eon Flux, right?
No, 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 no. It's
Okay.
completely different.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's one book I'm going to read this year. Should we do another one?
Yeah, let's do
All
another
right.
one.
So pick another number between 1 and 36 that isn't
I'm
7
gonna
or 12.
do 11.
11. Okay. So Lamont, what is one healthy food you are going to start eating in 2022?
I don't know. I feel like I already eat a lot of healthy foods. Well, yeah, like I eat broccoli and carrots and corn and Brussels sprouts smothered in cheese. But no, like I feel like I eat a lot of healthy food. So I don't know. I guess that's really hard. Do you have any recommendations on something I can try?
Kale.
You know, I
But
could
that's
add
just me. I
kale.
love kale. So,
I
like,
could I could add it into like my smoothies. I haven't been doing smoothies this year, and I probably want to start doing smoothies again. I can put kale into my smoothie.
that's a good way to get rid of the funkiness. You don't even taste it. Okay, last one is me. I'm going to do number 23. One way I'm going to make more money in 2022. Um,
Get more
I
viewers.
get more viewers.
Let our podcast make money. No, I'm just joking. Sorry, guys. No pressure.
Which, by the way, if you do want to support the podcast, we do have a link where you can donate to us. You will find it on our Anchor page. It has a link to there. So if you're feeling
And
generous,
yeah, and if you can't donate, just tell your friends and your
hmm
families to listen to the show or watch the show or both and make sure they do it.
exactly. But personally, one way I'm gonna make more money is I think I want to try and sell some of my art this year. I don't usually sell it. I usually just keep all my stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, make sure you guys check out this list. It's pretty good. I might actually go through all of these questions and try and like fill it out this year because there's some really good questions on here. Like one
Yeah,
way I'm gonna relax, one thing I won't tolerate anymore, one risk I'm gonna try. So yeah,
yeah, Leah. If you do, why don't you post it on the Lamont and Leah page where people can read your response and maybe share their own responses?
that sounds like a great idea. So yeah, look forward to that, and we look forward to what your guys' responses are.
And we're back. So let's talk about what benefits we get from learning to accept our mistakes, and like maybe even how like to go about that process of learning to accept the mistakes.
I think we touched on this a little bit,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
and it's just like they're learning opportunities, as people told me as a kid.
Like I feel like there's some trauma there.
Yeah, because it was annoying as a kid to keep hearing it, and no one would explain how. That's why, because they're like, it's a learning opportunity. I'm like, what does that mean? What do you mean it's a learning opportunity?
Yeah, so well, let's kind of unpack that, right? So like I know I've made mistakes, and I meant to do it one way, but then I did another way, and it kind of was easier to do it that way, right? And it's like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but hey, like, if I do it this way, it adds this, or it takes away from this, or, oh, now I know how to get to this. Like, definitely don't do that. you know? So it does teach us how to learn and grow and take us out of that, our comfort zone. Because when we're comfortable, we just do the same things over and over again. But when we're uncomfortable, we have to learn how to do things a different way to achieve a new state of comfort. So,
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that holds people back from wanting to learn from their mistakes or admitting that there's a mistake is that it's uncomfortable and it's outside your comfort zone where
hmm
you're not comfortable. um, and so yeah, like when I can see like the benefits from making it, like there's obviously benefits that we've all been told from getting outside of our comfort zone, and I think that's probably one of the main ones is that when you make a mistake and learning from it. Like it is an experience outside your comfort zone. And usually when you're in that space outside your comfort zone, like that's personal growth. Um, which um yeah, it's a positive experience for human beings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah. But Leah,
So,
um you touched on something, and it was that like no one taught you how to learn from your mistakes, which is huge. So yeah, maybe we can unpack that here, as to how someone can learn from their mistakes. How do
Mm-hmm.
you guys think it happens?
so I'm thinking of like my goddaughter and like maybe like an interaction with her where she did something that she didn't mean to do and then she kind of freezes and she shuts down because she's sad, right? Like that sadness is definitely overpowering her and taking her emotion. And so I definitely have to reassure her, like, hey, like, you're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. We can fix this, you know? And once that anxiety comes down, once that sadness comes, I guess, lessons,
Mm-hmm.
I can start giving her options. Or I can see where her options are. Like, hey, let's do some critical thinking. What do you think? How can we fix this? I don't know. Okay. Um, Maybe we can do it this way or this way. Which way would you like to do it, right? Obviously, as adults, we don't have to go, hopefully, we don't have to go through that process. And if we do, that's okay too, right? But we can usually figure out, oh, here's an option, I'm going to choose this option. So even though there might be a lot of negative experiences from making mistakes, a lot of times we've already gained the critical knowledge or the problem solving knowledge on how to fix that mistake. And
Mm-hmm.
so I I would like mistakes to be more non-threatening for people, but that is definitely one of the benefits is learning how to problem solve or fix it or redo or like figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was younger and people would just tell me like, "Oh, you can learn from your mistakes or whatever." It used to bother me because there's like people it's to me as a child, I was seeing these adults telling me pretty much just to get over it. And I was just like, "But how do you get over it? I'm upset right now. I didn't have someone like you, Lamont, blessings to your goddaughter, saying, hey, it's okay. You can be sad about it. It's fine, but let's fix it. And I think that that is a big difference. So, I mean, like when I'm talking to myself, yeah, I don't go, okay, this is how we do it. We have A and B, but I do something similar. I'm like, okay, so we're pissed off right now. We're going to be pissed off for a little bit. All right, cool. We're done being pissed off for the most part. Let's move on. How are we going to fix this now?
Or the opposite happens, right? Like maybe for someone else, like all those mean things or that get over it attitude that they heard in their childhood or in their head is how they're speaking to themselves in their head. Like, you need
Mm-hmm.
to get over this. Like, this is stupid. Blah, 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 blah. You know? So I think it definitely has an impact on how we do move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. And Leia, I think it all starts with what you said, like just asking that question to like, instead of, hey, I'm angry, this and this happened, but the question, how do I fix it, is so important. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if you just start there, like you'll probably be able to navigate yourself. Everyone's different. We'll all figure out a different strategy with coping with or dealing with whatever. Um, and you guys are, yeah, are probably a wealth of advice for anyone who's experiencing that. Just that question, like if you have that, it kind of programs a certain, it implies that you're gonna do it. And so you don't, I think otherwise, I think what I'm likely to do is just avoid it and like mask it, or like, hey, this happened, no, it's not a big deal, let's talk about something else or think about something else. But really that's not, I don't know, that's how I dealt with most things in my life, and wasn't the ideal. Looking back, wasn't the correct way to deal with most things.
Brian, what you talked about, I have been talking about for weeks on this podcast. Like, just weeks. Like, I say, stay in curiosity, have a curious mindset, because when we're able to do that, it keeps us out of that negative judgment for ourselves. And we're like, where is it coming from? How can I learn from it and stuff versus like just beating ourselves up or our spirit up, you know, with the anger, the sadness, the shame
Vic-
or
Victimhood. There's no how to questions in my head. It's like why me questions going and like, oh, horrible question to ask yourself because it's just gonna lead you down the wrong path, right?
yeah. I think another benefit, yes. So hold on before I move on. Yes, yes, Brian. I totally agree. I totally agree.
Right on.
So I think another benefit is the real world consequences of our decisions, right? Like when we
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes, we see how they play out, and we learn how consequences happen. And oh my gosh, I love teaching little kids, right? Because like like when I'm doing like a consequence lesson with the little kids, and I'm like are consequences bad? They're all like, yeah, consequences are bad. I was like, are they? Like, who told you that? And then I show them like, well, if I eat an ice cream and it's yummy, that's a consequence, but that's not a bad consequence. They're like, oh, no, that's not. And then I give them another example, another. And it's like, so consequence in of itself isn't bad, right? It's a result of what happens after an incident or after something happens. And there's desirable ones and undesirable ones. And so teaching them like trying to get them out of that wrong and right like mind frame can be challenging, but it's so rewarding and opens their mind to different possibilities. And so for us, learning how to make mistakes and then like learning how to re-navigate those mistakes shows us the consequences of our decision.
Well said. That is a good point. I guess you don't really think about it. Like, yeah, everything has a consequence, but desirable versus undesirable. Good point. See, this is why you're the educated one.
You're educated too. You have a degree too. Don't put yourself down. You worked
Yeah,
hard for your degree.
that's a good one. I like that
And our
one.
show looks amazing because of your degree. So,
Thank you. Um, all right. So what are some other benefits of learning to accept our mistakes? We
I think
went through a
humility
lot
is
of.
probably a big one.
Mm,
yeah, learning how to be humble or maybe more confidence. Like Leia, Adam is getting so much braver, like learning to read and words and trying words and remembering certain sounds that go together. I'm
mm-hmm.
so impressed by his progress, you know?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, humility and confidence. That's a good one. Because yeah, sometimes you mess up royally and you're like,
Yeah.
all right, let me take my ego down a notch here.
But like, so I'm thinking about when I first was starting to work with Adam, he wasn't even willing to try because
Yeah.
he was already a failure in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I just encouraged, like, hey, no, you got that right. Oh, you got that right. Oh, look, see, I knew you knew the answer.
Yeah.
Like, the more his confidence is building, and like, he'll try now. I don't even have to, like, sometimes I have to push, but like, sometimes, like, there's other times I don't have to push, and he's just like, try again. He was like, one more time. Try it this way. Oh, you figured it out. I knew you would, you know?
Right on. Would you say he's less scared of making mistakes now?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
definitely less scared of making mistakes and has more confidence of trying, like just trying different things, different sounds or different ideas.
Yeah. So, like the boundary of feeling like they're gonna fail, kind of like move past that. I guess that
Yeah,
would be another benefit of accepting a mistake.
yeah,
What
absolutely.
was that way there? Um, is that's all I can think of. Is there
Well,
anything else you guys
yes.
can think of?
So my last one is the connections between ideas and concepts, right? If I'm only viewing it in one way and I made a mistake and then someone introduces a new way or I see there's another way to get to the same concept, but I thought there was only one right way, it broadens my connection.
Yeah.
So Mistakes.
Exactly.
There's a lot to be learned.
Hmm.
Right on. This reminds me of something too. I saw an interview about the rise of automation and robots and the stuff that we took, like learning to learn from your mistakes. And honestly, I hope a lot of the topics that you guys cover here is a lot of the soft skills that that separate human beings to robots. So like the better you get at this stuff, like um, the more you're gonna be able to distinguish yourself from robots, because like these soft skills, these qualities, like learning from mistakes, teamwork, like just the soft skills that aren't inherent in these robots is like it's just going to be more and more important as we get older, right? um,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because like I'm thinking, like, what happens if a robot makes a mistake? It just does it again. It has to be reprogrammed to like not make that mistake. Whereas we don't have to be reprogrammed. I guess we do our own reprogramming. And again, like I feel like it needs to be taught, like from someone that maybe knows how. And if you don't, I would definitely encourage you to like start looking up those skills and practicing those skills and watching other videos that promote those skills. Really, I guess for us, like it goes back to like realization. Like that's where you can start. Like if you realize you're struggling with something, that's the starting place. That's the birthplace of change. So,
and that's probably the birthplace of how to learn from your mistakes as well, is the realization of it. Hey, I made a mistake. um like hey, going back to when you were talking or coaching Leia's brother, you realized, hey, I made a mistake. You took responsibility, like, hey, it's not his fault, it's actually me because I haven't ate, I'm hungry, whatever. Taking the responsibility for it. and then uh and
seeing
then I
it through
guess
his
what would
lens.
you think the next step would be?
Um, practicing. Practicing is always the next step, right? Um, practicing with someone that makes you feel safe. So that's important. So like if you're in an environment, like say you're listening and you're in an environment where like, oh, all these ideas sound great, like they don't know my family. I get it. I understand. Um you gotta get out of your circle, out of what's familiar, and find people that are different from you and practice with them. Because when you start practicing with them, it's going to strengthen you, and then you can bring these skills back to your family. And either your family's going to rebel, or they're gonna be like, "Hey, like that's effective. Let me try." You know.
Yeah, I think we touched a little bit on it when you were telling us a story about your goddaughter, about like, okay, here's your choices, how are we going to fix it? I think, like I said, there, that of course is like a child's way of thinking about it, but if you move it forward into like more of adult mindset, like, okay, I'm upset, let me calm down. Okay, I'm calm now. How do I fix it? But yeah, like you said, got to practice. It's not easy. I mean, I do this all the time. I still get very upset, and my fiance has to come in and remind me, like, babe, it's okay. It's fine. Okay. Let's just go fix it. I'm like, yeah, you right. So, of course, practice makes perfect, right?
Right. All right. So, Brian, I really enjoyed all the insights that you had today, all the questions that you asked Leah and myself. This was a really, really great conversation. Thank you for coming on to our podcast. If people wanted to get in contact with you and maybe have you on their podcast or have business questions on how to like do different things, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I say social media is probably the most successful for everyone. You just search my first and last name, Brian Nogaro, on Facebook or Instagram, and or LinkedIn, or hey, anywhere. It'll probably be the easiest way to get a hold of me. But guys, thank you so much for this. I had a ton of fun. Yeah, a lot of the things that I'm passionate about, like I think you guys just provide a lot of value to your listeners by covering a lot of topics that, to be honest, it's hard to find out there. And um, just really grateful to be on here and as much out of it as I did. And yeah, I'd hope to be back here soon one day.
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, as always, all of his links and stuff will be in the show description, so you can actually just click on those and make it nice and easy for you guys. Is there anything that you're like working on that you want to share, something you want to brag about, a project that you're doing?
Um, yeah, so for anyone who's in the Toronto area, or not, started a nonprofit 2 years ago. It's called JCI Toronto, if anyone's familiar with JCI. It's just a network of young professionals that are striving to make a positive impact in their community, whether it's regionally or nationally or internationally. And yeah, so check out JCI Toronto if anyone is out there that wants to join a like-minded network of a nonprofit. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
All right. And then finally, is there a message that you would leave us with? Anything from your heart? It doesn't have to be on today's subject, but like anything you just want people to know, like a nice like take home message.
Yes. Uh, Never be afraid to just be bold, be yourself. And and yeah, I've just in the past, one lesson that I've learned is just, when you hide, when you make yourself small, when in that paralyzed, like indecisiveness stage, um, good things don't come your way that way. And so yeah, for anyone who's listening to this, just don't be scared to be bold, be yourself, be out there, and just live your best life.
All
Awesome.
right.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Yeah. And once again, thank you for being on our podcast today. It's been so great to get to know you, to see you, to talk with you, and share all these different ideas with you.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks to our listeners and our viewers, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. Today's life lesson is becoming. It is a lifelong journey. Life isn't about arriving somewhere or achieving a certain aim. Life is about forward movement, learning, evolving into a better sense of self. Becoming is realizing that the journey doesn't end. Michelle Obama once said, "Becoming is never giving up on the idea that there is more growing to be done." And that is today's life lesson.